Hello, this is a video about using the facilities at Gitlab to monitor the workflow for uploading data papers to the Geothermodat Repository on Gitlab. These are papers associated with updating and revising the Berman dataset. The first thing you need to do is come to the enkiportal.org website and go to the portal menu and look at the two entries under the portal menu. The first entry, of course, takes you to the Enki Jupyter Hub server. Now, at the Jupyter Hub server, you can run Jupyter notebooks that allow you to choose papers to enter. It allows you to create an Excel template for entering those data, and also allows you to take a filled-in Excel template and run it through a validation routine and upload it to a directory repository on the Enki server that will ultimately be the destination of these Excel workbooks that contain the Berman data. There's going to be separate videos about how to use the various Jupyter notebooks on the Enki server. What I want to concentrate on now is how you can monitor the workflow and allow other people in the Enki users group to see what you're working on and the progress you're making towards filling in those data resources, and get some idea about how we're progressing towards the milestone of completing the Berman data entry project. So what you want to do is after you've selected a paper or after you've worked with the server or while you're doing so, come to the Access Code Repository link. And this will take you to the Gitlab website where the Enki portal code repositories are located. Now, by default, the only code depository you can see is the website depository, which is here. But that's not the one you want. In order to get to the Geothermodat repository, you have to sign in. So come over here to the upper right, click on Sign In, and provide your credentials, your username and your password for signing into GitLab. And you should have those credentials already, but if you don't, just send me an email at Ghiorso@ofmresearch.org and I'll make sure that you become part of the Enki portal user group on GitLab. Once you sign in, you'll be presented with a list of all of the Enki portal code repositories and data repositories that exist. And the one that you want is Geothermodat. It may not be the first in the list when you log in, but you'll find it in the list of repositories. Click on Geothermodat. And this is now the repository that actually contains the workbooks and the data area, data repository, data tools for maintaining and uploading or for entering the papers associated with data in the Berman thermodynamic data calibration data set. Now, what you want to do is not pay too much attention to the list of files here, but go down the menu on the left until you find Issues. And issues are where we've decided to store the papers that need to be entered into the Berman data set, and that which includes PDFs of those papers and all of the sort of metadata information associated with those papers to allow you to choose papers or monitor which ones you're working on and so on and so forth. Of all the entries, all the sub-menu entries in the Issues menu here, the one that really is most relevant is to choose Milestones. And in Milestone, you're going to see a list of several milestones for completing the Geothermodat project. The first two are relevant. The first one corresponds to entering papers in the Berman database that correspond to the MASH system: magnesium, silica, alumina, water, and carbon dioxide. The second milestone corresponds to papers in the complete Berman dataset. You'll see that in the MASH system here, there are 89 issues or 89 papers that need to be entered to complete the MASH dataset. And in the complete Berman dataset, you'll see that there are 115 issues or 115 papers that are required to complete the complete Berman dataset. It's a bit of a misnomer here. We can only assign a paper to a single milestone. So in reality, there are 89 plus 115 papers for the complete Berman dataset, and there are 89 papers in the MASH subset of the Berman dataset. I'm going to show you what you do if you've decided to work on a paper in the MASH dataset. Click on the MASH milestone, and you will be taken to a graph and an issue board. The graph is simply telling you how far we've progressed in actually completing the full upload of all papers into the MASH dataset. The green line is our current progress, the dashed line is our hypothetical progress towards a milestone date of mid-December. Now you see our progress right now is not very good, but that's because the papers that have been entered, they have been completed as Excel workbooks, have not yet been validated. Once they're validated, the green line hopefully will come down and more or less coincide with our dashed line milestone progress. Key, though, is to come down to the list of papers or issues associated with the various categories. So in this first column, we have papers that have not yet been assigned. No one is working on them. These are papers that need to be worked on. In the second column, we have papers that have been assigned to an individual, are in progress of being tabulated, and in fact, may actually have complete Excel workbooks associated with them, but have not yet been validated. And finally, over in the last column, over here, we see the papers that have been uploaded and validated and are completed. Now, right now, again, there aren't any papers in that column because the current Excel workbooks have not gone through the validation process. But once they do, the issue will be closed, the paper will be uploaded, and the papers will move across into that column. So suppose you want to work on a paper. Here's what you do. Let's say we want to work on the RAS 1983 paper, which is a paper that needs to be entered. It contains data on SiO2, and it corresponds to figure 4B of Berman. If you go through this list, you'll notice that some papers have more than just one element. Of course, some papers have lots of elements. Some papers correspond to many figures in Berman. It's all there for your reference to cross-check the paper you're trying to work on. If we click on RAS 1983, we're going to be taken to the details of that issue. And the RAS 1983 PDF associated with this reference is actually available now in this issue pane, and you can click on it and download it to your desktop if you don't already have a copy of the PDF. We're trying to put PDFs for all the papers up into these issues on Gitlab so that you don't have to search for them yourself. You can just download them. If you're going to work on this paper, there are two things you need to do. First, come over on the right-hand side and click Assign Yourself to the paper. That means that you're working on it. It will be announced to anyone coming to Gitlab that you now own this paper or this issue, and no one else will try to work on it because you've now been assigned to it. The second thing you need to do is come down to this menu or this area called Labels, click on Edit, and scroll down to the bottom of the labels, and you'll notice that there's a label, Papers to Enter, is checked. Well, uncheck that, and now check on Papers in Progress, and then come out and click somewhere out here. And now you'll notice that the label tags for the paper has changed. So now when you go back, use the back arrow and go back to the issues, that RAS paper, if we refresh the screen, will now have moved from the column corresponding to papers waiting to be assigned to papers that have been assigned and are currently being worked on. Okay, you can now go to the Enki portal Jupyter Hub server, run the notebook, create the workbook to fill in these data if you haven't already done that. Fill in that workbook. You run the other notebook that allows you to validate that you've done the entry correctly. And once everything is completed, come over here, click on RAS again, and this time change the label to papers completed. Click on the edit labels and change papers in progress, uncheck that, and then check paper completed. And then once you've done the papers complete, change papers in progress to papers completed, come up to the top of the issue pane here and click close issue. Now I'm not going to do that because we haven't filled in this paper, but if you do click closed issue and then come back to the main Milestone board again and refresh the page, you will have found that RAS will move over to here. And at the same time, a notice will be sent to the Slack user group identifying your achievement and identifying you as having achieved that triumph of finishing a paper. And at the same time, that milestone of completing one of these papers will be updated on the graph. Okay? That's basically how we would like you to monitor the workflow of working on these papers as you do so. And in this way, we're all going to be clear as to who's working on what paper and what sort of progress we're making. And in particular, we'll be able to identify and talk to individuals that have checked out papers and monitor progress and see who's doing what. Thank you very much again for participating in this effort, and it's going to be great when this green line here is all the way down at the bottom over here in mid-December. Bye-bye.